Skinny dresses and heartbreaks, nothing magic going on. Then along came you. All the lights are down low and I keep losing my focus. There's something happening in the car. Keep cool.
Really nice. Yeah, we toured with the live band for the first time last year, which was kind of our proper Hourglass tour, and that one was kind of a terrifying ride of what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
I've never sang before, all that stuff. So this one is great because now I'm feel a lot more confident about what I'm doing, and now it's also about kind of tying everything together in a really awesome way with the band. So the first 4 shows have gone really well. I'm really happy.
Oh, I can hardly breathe.
It's insane how much I learned. When you don't, I mean, DJ culture is a certain kind of performance, and band culture is an entirely different thing. And so when I didn't really see bands a lot growing up because I was a classical dude. So I just thought you play your song, you say hello, you play your next song, tell a funny story, and then you say hello. And then I just realized I don't have anything. I don't know what to talk. I don't know what to say. I feel like a stand-up comedian that's bombing. I don't know what to say to people. And then I started watching some other bands now, and it really makes a lot more sense. You can really program the show in kind of a cinematic way, and you can guide it in advance the way you want to, and then choose your moments, kind of like a DJ said a little bit. So we're getting better at that. The band's sounding great. Programming electronic and acoustic music for a live band is a bit of an art form. It doesn't always translate exactly right, so it's been taking a lot of time to kind of figure out how to make things sound wonderful in the room.
So weak when you make it happen away. Oh, I can't hardly breathe.
Tons of tweaking, yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, the tough part is you can only premeditate so much of it. It's really when everybody's in the room playing at full volume, do things reveal themselves, and they reveal themselves very quickly. It's really similar to DJing where you produce a record in your bedroom, and then you really only get if it works when you're at the club. You mix it in, and either people are reacting or they're not. You know so quickly, and so a lot of it is like, okay, I made drums for this song with a computer, but I have a live drummer. Should he play those drums? Should those drums play while he doubles them? Should he trigger both at the same time? And unfortunately what I found is it's different for every single song.
Yeah.
So every single one we have to configure it just right.
And to keep trembling, I'm so weak when you make it happen away.
The first tour I was manically afraid because it was my first time ever singing like in public before, so I was practicing for like 2 months just by myself. This time around I feel a lot more comfortable with it, and so I hit it harder with the band, just making sure we could get everything together. We also put together a new light show for it too, so that's like some time to retool, and it's really freaking cool. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, there's certain aspects that I would have loved to rehearse more, but the nice thing about a 7-week tour is that it just starts to become a finer and finer tool, you know, over each night.
Tell me what you did. I'm broken and I love it more every moment. You need something when you leave. And I can hardly breathe.
That's a really great insight you had. I took a lot of lessons from the first tour, and it's funny because the first songs I ever proper sang was like Our Story and one we did called Way Back Home, and I go back and I listen to those, and it's like cringy in a loving way where you're just kind of like, wow, I can't, because I didn't know what I was doing and I'd never sang before, and there was so much extra auto-tune and poorly chosen effects, and it was mixed awfully, and it's just so fun to kind of, you know, it's almost like looking at old pictures of yourself doing something really silly, but you were really trying, you put all of yourself into it. So I don't feel bad about it, but it's really nice to feel the growth and then use it on Breathe as like an actual tool, like it's kind of a weapon in my arsenal now. Let me do some crazy vocals at the end of the song because I can do it now. I could never do that before. Whereas before I might need to fill up the end with more track because that's the only way I could make it boost. Now I can do things vocally. And I, like you said, it's hard to find an identity as an artist guitars, and production and sound design was never my strongest suit, and kind of finding the identity of Mako inside my own voice just made so much sense, and it's really kind of helped me kind of figure things out from there.
Legends never die when the world is calling you. Can you hear them screaming
You were like,
I want it to be. It was similar to Let Go of the Wheel. The tough thing is, you know, when you're not making purely like progressive house is what I was doing.
Yep.
When you're in progressive house, there's like a mold. There's like a structure that everybody knows, and it's really comfortable to make music in that because there's rules, and I like rules, and musicians like rules because then it's not limitless. You can kind of constrain yourselves to doing the most amazing drop and the most amazing breakdown. But when it's just wide open, it's like anything could happen here. So what should happen and what do I want to happen? And so for me, like, organic instruments are such a big deal for me. So the guitars are all alive, and even the percussion's all alive too. I record all that stuff just slapping on guitars and drums, and there's a lot of cinematic stuff. There's brass and strings and pianos, and then you know, me singing, and that took like 8 months to get it all right because it's so hard to just like make it work. It's weird because when you hear everybody's finished records, you're like, yeah, it's great, but sometimes they go through just journeys to get there. Yeah.
Legends never
that kind of stuff.
I always loved movie scores, but I didn't always know I wanted to do that stuff. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but for me, it was like Lord of the Rings coming out was one. Yeah, so you're in the same range as me, where it's like that left. So that was like our Star Wars to some sense, where like all of our parents, they were so moved by Star Wars. For us and me, it was like Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings scores, and I always got chills listening to that kind of music. And so I went to college for French horn, and then started deciding, why don't I start writing some stuff? And so I think my real like love affair with writing film music started in college, and I moved out to LA to do that. I still had never heard of electronic music before. I was really like in my own little like tunnel vision world, and that was Logan that brought me like sort of out into the real world. And now it's all about, you know, combining all my favorite things, and I developed such a love for progressive house and electronic music with cinematic music, pop stuff, and indie rock stuff. So it's kind of all swirling around in there.
When you
just take a bullet right straight through your heart. Oh, I made my mistakes.
There are similar elements, and there are extremely different elements. Yeah. And I used to write full orchestra stuff by hand in college, and there's certain things, it's called orchestration, when you're really just looking at the vertical score and all the instruments, and there's rules about ways that they interact the best. And then there's a lot of things about producing that's similar to that. You have high frequency to low frequency, and things need to center around the kick, and there's vocals, and there needs to be space, and you can't clutter things. But the big difference is, I would describe electronic production as so much more mathematic. I mean, I'm looking at graphs and, you know, EQs and filters, and I'm using all kinds of compression, things that have number parameters rather than maybe sonic parameters. And so with the transition, I had no good sense of like what a bass line is or what a good groove is, because classical music just develops constantly. It never really sits in a pocket. It just kind of goes and goes and goes. And so all those things were my strength, which is writing melodies and creating harmonies and emotional stuff. But I'm still struggling and just trying to catch up to like making fucking great drums and like making things drive and a mix sound punchy and huge. And it's not a fluent switch, unfortunately, but what I hope is that, you know, whenever I feel really comfortable, I've got sort of an expertise in a couple different worlds. I think that's one, my favorite artists are guys that seem to like have borrowed from a couple places very, very elegantly. I love that stuff. I have a huge regret that we didn't communicate things a little bit clearer, and it wasn't necessarily up to me and Logan because we had some sort of outside forces that made it awkward for us to like communicate what was going on. But we are on super great terms. He actually came out and opened for us in Michigan 3 nights ago. Came out and played some shaker. He's gonna come out for a couple nights as like a little surprise appearance. And so what actually happened is he was in law school for the last couple of years, killed it, passed the bar, and then got a huge offer at an amazing firm. And the dynamic between us was so different than most people because I actually made all the music, all the way back from Beam till now. And then he would meet me on the weekends and be kind of the leader of the DJ set. So he would prepare the set, I would write all the music. And then at almost the right moment, his life took off in a different direction while I started making other stuff rather than dance music. And so we talk I talk to him all the time. So we're super close. So there's no bad feeling for us, but I really don't ever want anybody else to feel let down, because this is like the most important thing to me, is to make people feel like they're getting everything that I've got to give. And it's hard to, I don't want to say like, what I see is like an interesting narrative online, which is like Logan was the electronic guy. Now that he's gone, no more electronics. And the truth of it is that it was just I made all the electronics, and then I decided to make other stuff. So it was all penned by the same person. But it is true that like by the time Logan moved off for his job, I kind of like got into some other stuff. So it is kind of an interesting chapter mark in like the kind of Mako sound. But I'm so proud of him. He's an amazing dude. I mean, like it's pretty phenomenal to have built Mako with me while going to law school and passing the bar.
The first time I heard it was like, I was listening to the radio and they're like, and Logan just passed the bar.
I don't know how I can't. The only thing I can do is music. I wish I was that talented. I would say like the production is kind of the bane of my existence. I love songwriting. I love just creating, composing. All those things are great. And then making it sound huge is so hard for me. I think it's hard for a lot of people. And the other difficult thing is that the sound of everything shifts so quickly. I mean, before it was like new subgenres of dance music would come and go so fast. But now it's like hip-hop is all the rage, so like people don't want to listen to big melodic stuff anymore, and it's like, oh, that's my favorite stuff, so like now I gotta learn how to make hip-hop drums, and you hear some artists do it, like Imagine Dragons record comes out and it's like hip-hop drums with sick basses and then his voice, and it does really well. And then you hear Coldplay, which is kind of almost like produced by pop producers now. It's not really like a band anymore. And then you hear other bands go different directions. So a lot of us are kind of at a crossroads. Just, who do you want to be and what do you want to do? And I'm always partial to just doing what I love rather than what everybody else is doing. But it's a crazy experience, because when you're kind of like building a thing and you have a team and labels and all that stuff, man, they are just trying to yank you in directions constantly that you don't feel comfortable going. And sometimes it's for practical reasons, and sometimes it's for reasons that are just selfish for them and not for you. And you really it takes a lot of like strength, and I fail and succeed all the time at like picking the right path. So it's a constant battle. And so I get disappointed when I feel like artists are doing something that's not true to themselves, like any fan would, but I also can I can understand it a bit too, because I know how complicated it can be. But I feel like, my own happiness comes from just making as beautiful music as I can. So as long as I'm doing that, like I feel like I'm heading in the right direction. There's a lot, man. There's so many great people making music. The one thing that makes me a little sad is that not all the people I'm loving are like succeeding like numbers wise and all the ways that those things happen. But it was around Hourglass where I just started listening to a lot more bands and kind of indie electronic artists, because I love electronic music. So I started sliding from Swedish House Mafia, kind of quit, and then I moved into Odessa and now in Porter and all those guys. Just so beautiful. And then I started getting into some kind of weirder guys, like there's artists called Son or Sun Lux, and then it started getting into kind of avant-garde electronic music. And I don't make that stuff, but I was really inspired by it. And then I got into Sigur Rós and all these Icelandic bands, and it's so beautiful and cinematic. And then Logan is obsessed with Radiohead, so I've been listening to them for a long time, and man, it's just, they're so good. So there's so many places to still be inspired, which is great. But you want to see all those people win too, because when everything is either tropical house or hip-hop or whatever, it's kind of like a smaller field where the rest of us can feel comfortable exploring and being able to pay the rent while trying to make music that's really authentic. Those guys are so good. Oh, I love that set. I think I saw Grismatic at Electric Forest, and it's God, it's so fun. It's gonna happen. So when I was in China recently for League of Legends, I was doing this song with them, and they have a full amazing orchestra come out. They fly them all out, and the horn players were like, they found out that I used to play, and so they're like, you're bringing your French horn this time. So I said, okay, next like Worlds, I'm gonna do it, and then I'll start incorporating it into the set.
Can't wait.
Yeah.